Hi there. My name is Jean Ping and I'm a reference librarian at Butte College. There are several reference librarians here at the library, and we are here to answer your questions to help you with your research and help you find the information you need. There are several ways to get a hold of us. You can email us at referenceli@butte.edu. And you can also use our 24/7 chat service, which is right here. Anytime you need some help figuring something out, you just put in your name and email address and ask a question. And we have a whole co-op of librarians who answer the questions. It's not good for technical help kind of things. Like if your ID isn't working and you can't log in, it doesn't work for that. But it will be great for any kind of research question that you have. So you can get hold of us that way. I'm going to be giving you a little tour of our library services, and so you can watch along. We also offer shorter video tutorials for just single jobs. This is going to be kind of an overview, and you can just try all this out on your own. So we have a lot of different services here. This is our general search bar, which I'm going to show you in a minute, where you just can search for anything. If you want to use the research databases to find articles, you can use this button. If you scroll down, you can find our reserve textbooks. We have research guides, which I will show you later, and video tutorials. You can use any of our online services whenever you have an internet connection. If you are off campus, you just need to log in with your MyBC username and password when it asks you. Okay, let's look for a book. Say, for example, that we're going to do a search for a psychology book. We have a lot of those. So we're just going to put that in, press search. And it comes up with a whole list of results. And the top ones, if there are any textbooks, those will be at the top. So you can see that they're on reserve. And then you scroll down a little bit and you get a mixture of physical and e-books. So if it says it's available in the stacks, then it's a physical book. If it says it's available online, you can get it as an e-book. You can search for e-books by clicking Books here, limiting it just to books, and then clicking Available Online. And that will get you ebooks. So let's say you want to read about sport and exercise psychology. You can just click right here, and it will go directly to the ebook. You can see the cover here. You can see a summary of what the book is about, so that you can decide whether or not it's something you want to read. Over here on the right side, you will see some tools. You can add the information to your Google Drive. You can get a little free folder in the EBSCO database service, so you can come back and find it later. That's not super permanent because you have to be logged in, and it will log you out very fast, and it won't tell you. You can print a selection or this front page. You can email this to yourself. You can't email yourself the whole book, but you will email yourself the information and a link to it, which is very handy. You can also get the citation right here. It will just come up with citations for every different style. If you're using APA, it's right there. There's Chicago, and MLA is right here, and you can just copy and paste that directly into your paper. So it's very handy. You can also find a permanent link here. The URL at the top of the page is not permanent. It is the result of a search. So if you copy that and try to come back later, it won't work. You need to copy this in order to come back later. Sometimes you might want to email that to somebody or something. Okay, if you want to actually read the book, you click here on PDF or the EPUB, and it opens up the book for you. Okay, and you can see the cover here. You can go from section to section with these arrows, or you can also use the table of contents right over here. Each of these will go to the next section. This is the download symbol. I do not usually recommend that you download ebooks. It's kind of a hassle. It takes 2 accounts. Both are free, but you have to register for them. You need to download a specialized Adobe app, and then the book disappears after a couple of days. So you can just read it right here as long as you've got an internet connection, and I would only bother to download it if I was not going to have an internet connection for a few days. When you wish to close the book, you need to press this back button here. That will tell the database that you're done. If you just close out the tab, then the database doesn't know, and it has to wait to time out. And until that time is over, nobody else will be able to use the book, including you. So it will not know that you're trying to get back in. Otherwise, you can go ahead and access the book anytime. It's just a single user license, though. So if somebody else is using it, you have to wait your turn. Just wait half an hour and try again. Okay, let's go back to the results list. This is just a list of books. It will also, if you just do a general search, it will also come up with articles and journals and things like that. But the best way to find articles is really to use our databases page. That's easier to deal with. So let's take a look at that. At the Butte College Library, we subscribe to about 50 databases for every topic. There is business and government, music, medical, news, anything you could want. So our top 10 are over here on the side, right here. Those are the most popular ones. And you can also do an alphabetical search. We have a lot of different interesting things. We have streaming videos here, so you can look for documentary videos. We have a subscription to the New York Times and another one to the Sacramento Bee. And we have these large general databases like Academic Search Complete and ProQuest and SIRS. The database I'm going to show you right now is excellent for a current issues kind of paper. It's called SIRS. Let's say your instructor says, I would like you to write a current issues paper, something you care about that's relevant, and I never want to hear about marijuana or abortion or gun control ever again in my whole entire life. So you can't write about those. Well, what are you going to write about? SIRS is a treasure trove of ideas. It's just wonderful. So you can see it has these pictures that are each topics. You can do a general search right here for any topic you like. We'll try that in a bit. But it also divides its articles up into these great topics. And here are the general categories down here, and then they just highlight some up here. So let's say we want to talk about school, family, and youth. That's something you're interested in. You can go there, and it has each of these is a topic about which you can find plenty of information. So how about college tuition? That's pretty relevant. Let's look at that. So first of all, it will give you a little overview of the topic. That's not a real article, it's just the database's overview. And then it gives you a kind of example of pro and con arguments. It asks a question, something that would actually be very good for a research kind of paper or a position paper, and it gives you 2 different viewpoints and articles that argue for each viewpoint. So it's a very nice example of how to write a persuasive or position paper on a current topic. This is the most important part, find more sources. We'll come back to that in a second. It also gives you some examples of good questions to ask. maybe a cartoon, and then there's usually a little timeline down at the bottom, which is really nice because it'll give you an idea of the development of the topic in question. But most importantly is to click here on Find More Sources for this topic. And that's where you find the list of articles. We have here a couple of thousand articles about college tuition. The most recent ones are on top, except for the overview and the things they've kind of got pinned to the top here. You can see on the side that they're categorized by the type of source. There's newspapers, magazines, even government sources, and things like that. So you can say, I only want to look at magazine stories or government sources or something like that. They don't do a lot of scholarly journals. Other databases have much more of that kind of thing. So let's look at this one. I can see this is from the Los Angeles Times about 8 months ago. We click on that and I get a summary to see if this is something I really want to deal with. I can see where it was published and when, and I can just go ahead and read my article. But I also have some tools here. I can listen to this article. It will read it aloud to me if I prefer, maybe while I'm commuting. I can translate it. If I want to read it in Turkish or Spanish or Korean, I can do that. I can save it to my Google Drive. I can produce a citation in MLA or APA or Chicago, Turabian in Chicago there. I can print it out and I can email it to myself. Now, when you find articles or books that you think will be useful to you, I would really recommend that you email it to yourself if you think it will be remotely useful. And that way you don't have to go back and find it again. It's very common for people to write something down and then try to find it again, and they can't find it, and they only have half the information, and it's just a hassle. But if you email it to yourself, you will always have it, and it can't get lost. So that's just my little tip there. At the bottom, you will find related subjects, and you might wish to click on any of these. Each one will do a search on that particular subject. Like, for example, if I click here, I'll get a list of articles that are relevant to that. I can also do a search up here, like so, and it will come up with whatever I search on. So let's say I want to look at just magazines, I can do that. Things like that. Okay. So that database is called SIRS Issues Researcher, and it's great for current issues. It does not have scholarly resources for the most part. It only has a little bit. And if your instructor says that you need to come up with scholarly resources, you need to go to another database. For example, Academic Search Complete or ProQuest. We're not going to talk a lot about scholarly articles in this class, but I am going to show you this EBSCO database. It looks familiar. It's just like the eBooks one because the same company owns it. Now, when you're doing a search here on one of these larger databases, like ProQuest or Academic Search Complete, the first thing you want to do is find the full text button and click it. Because these larger databases collect citations for articles as well as full articles. And so you don't want to do a search and then come up with a bunch of articles that you can't actually read because they didn't get the whole thing. That's not useful. There are millions of articles in this database, so just skip it and press full text. If you are looking for just scholarly journals, you can click this, but if you don't, you'll get a mix of popular and peer-reviewed, and that is just fine. So let's do a search here. We'll stick with college tuition. And you can see it starts doing suggestions as to what I might want to put in. I'm just going to put in just college tuition for right now. And you can see I get 2,400 articles. This is more than I really want to deal with. And I have many tools here to narrow it down and make it more specific. For example, I have this slidey bar that covers the publication dates. The oldest of these articles is from 1935. That's much older than I want to deal with. I'm only going to worry about the last 10 years. And so it will update. And now I only have 1,000 articles to deal with, which is less. I can also say, you know, I really only want to read about magazines. I don't want to deal with newspapers. So I could do that. And it will update. And you can see on the side here, it shows a little icon as to what kind of a resource it is. I've selected magazines, so it says periodicals. But if I could have newspapers, scholarly journals, and other things too. So let's take a look at this. This is a magazine called State Legislatures, or here's one from Nation. Let's look at that. And here I have the abstract, which is the summary of the article. It's always very handy, especially in these larger databases, to read it before you try to read the actual article, because a lot of the articles are 20 pages long and written at a very high level, and you don't want to slog through the whole thing before you decide whether or not you want it or not. So you can just read the abstract and find out first. Here are your tools up on the side, the same as we saw earlier. And you can read the article by clicking on the PDF, and it's just a scanned copy. So you can read that there. And here you will find the table of contents from the original magazine, and if it's a themed issue or something, you might find something else that's useful to you. So it's always good to look at it. Let's go back to the result list. And I can continue looking at all of these articles. I've got plenty. Here's one that says it has the HTML available as well. So you can see both are on the side here. And that means that the article will be available in its full text below the information that serves as a sort of front cover to it. This is good to know because if you have the HTML option, you can have it read to you, and you can even pick what accent you want. And you can also translate it if you wish. So if it says HTML, then you can do that. Otherwise it doesn't offer it for just the PDF ones. Okay, let's say that I want to get more focused and detailed in my search. Let's look at some of the search techniques that are most helpful. When you use a database to search for articles, you might start with a simple keyword search. That's when you just put a word or two about your topic into the search bar and see what happens. And that's a good place to start. But most of the time, a simple keyword search will bring too many results back, and you'll need to refine your search to get more focused on what you're looking for. Using just a few search techniques will really help make your searching more efficient and focused. You may want to search in different fields to get more focused. The search bar will default to a keyword search, but you can also choose to search for an author, a title, a subject, or several other types of information. One very useful technique can be used when you're searching on a phrase or several words. For example, if you're searching on climate change and you just put in those two words, your results will include all items that have the words climate and change somewhere in them, and won't necessarily be about the topic of climate change. Putting those two words into quotation marks will limit your results to items that have the phrase climate change. Those two words together, in that order. Using quotation marks for a phrase search is something you can do in any search engine, and it's often a good way to look for a particular sentence or line of words. If I want to look up a song and I can only remember a line or two, using quotation marks is the way to go. The most basic search tools are the words and, or, and not. We use these to build a search in a kind of mathematical way, like an equation, but it's not difficult. We will use Venn diagrams to illustrate. And is the term to use when you want to narrow your search down. I might want to look for articles about the effects of climate change, but not all over the world. I just want to focus on coral reefs. Climate change and coral will give me a list of resources that specifically include both those terms. The more ands I put into my search, the more specific it will get. So I could add and Caribbean to focus on articles about coral reefs in the Caribbean. Or, on the other hand, widens a search. It's great for synonyms. For example, the terms we use for climate change have, well, changed a lot over the years. We started with global warming, moved on to climate change, and now global heating and climate crisis are favored. If I wanted to do a search that could include more than one of those related terms, I could use global warming or climate change. I could expand it to global warming or climate change or global heating or climate crisis, and my search would then bring back articles that contained any of those phrases. Not is the term you will use least. Not cuts out a result that you don't want. For example, if I am researching cowboys, I would not only get articles about historical cowboys, I would also get quite a bit about the Dallas Cowboys football team. If I search with cowboys not football, that will get rid of the results I don't want and leave just the items about other kinds of cowboys. So it's a bit specialized, but not is handy when you are getting a lot of results that use the term you're searching on, but are not relevant. Think of a word that relates only to the unwanted items, and use not. It's very common that you need to search for a term that has more than one form. For example, if you're researching something about genetics, you'd need to look for the words gene, genetic, genetics, and genetically. It's easy to look for all of those words at once by using truncation, which is when you search for just part of the word and put an asterisk. So you would type gene, asterisk, and get results that include any word starting with gene. If you were looking for articles about teenagers, teen, asterisk, would cover teen, teens, teenager, teenagers, and anything else starting with teen. A wildcard search is similar to truncation, but involves only one letter. If I'm looking for a word that may have different forms, but has just one letter difference, I can use a question mark. So, WOM question mark N would search for woman, women, and even women. Finally, I can use parentheses to group terms together as I would with an algebra problem, so that they'll be prioritized. If I'm using a couple of terms with or, it's a good idea to put them in parentheses together before combining them with and. It looks like a math problem only with words. For example, parentheses, alpha or beta, parentheses, and gamma. Using these various tools, we can easily build complex searches that are highly specific. I might look for articles about the effects of drug abuse on the brains of adolescents by building this. The phrase drug abuse and brain, truncated, and parentheses, teen, truncated, or adolescent, truncated. I can always make my searches better and more specific. These tools should take you far in improving your research techniques. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let's go back to the databases page. You may also like to try out some of these other databases. Statista has statistics. Like I said, ProQuest is very much like Academic Search Complete, like I just showed you. And you can go through and look at all of these. There's all kinds of great stuff here. Health and Wellness, Health Source, those are good medical ones. All right. So we have looked on how to search at the library for a book or an article. We've looked at our databases. If you scroll down here, we also offer a selection of research guides, and we put these together for your classes. Some of them are class specific. So for example, if you're in an English class, you can have information relevant to your class put into a guide. Others are just more general. For example, we have citation guides. So if you need to write a paper with APA or MLA, you can look at these guides and get help with that. We have other things like, for example, if we have a book display, we might put that in here. We have a really nice one on evaluating media, social media, dodgy news, that kind of thing. And I would highly recommend everybody to read this one, because it just has some really good information in there. Down here you can find the research things. And so, for example, there's a really great step-by-step guide to writing a research paper. This is very helpful if you find that you don't really know how to write a research paper. This gives you just a really nice map for it. So it's very handy. So, back here to the library homepage. Now, most of the time, you're used to doing a Google search for when you're looking for information. And here at the library, we want to encourage you to use our databases and our books and our research guides for the reason that a Google search is not a good use of your time when it comes to college level research. You will wind up with lots of just junk results that you have to wade through in order to find something that you can use. And it just takes a lot longer. Much of the material in our databases is not available on the wider web for free, because we pay to get access to it. It's a subscription. And so that's all reliable information that you won't find through a Google search, or you will find it hidden behind a paywall. I'm sure you have done a search in the past and found what looks like the perfect article, only to discover that they want $20 for it, and they want you to give them your credit card number. And we never want you to do that here at the Butte College Library, because you have already paid your fees, and as a Butte College student, you have the right to access to all of this stuff without paying for it anymore. So anything that you need to get access to for your schoolwork should be free after you've paid your fees. And we are here to help you with that. If the article or the book you want is not something we have direct access to, we have a service called Interlibrary Loan, and we can get it for you, usually fairly quickly if it's an article. So ask us about that. Another thing we have here is video tutorials. If you want to know just how to do one job in the library, we have a video for it probably, and we are always making more. We've had videos for a long time, but we're refreshing them now, so these are all brand new. You'll find that we have things about using the library remotely, how to find a scholarly article, how to download ebooks, getting citations from the databases. Here's our interlibrary loan video, getting an article the library doesn't have, how to find zero textbook cost classes, all this kind of thing. And they're divided up by topic. Citations, databases, anything you need to use. Research tips. These videos are also found on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. It's right here. Just the Butte College Library. and all of our videos are available there too. So we hope that you will access our resources for your research needs. We're here to help you do your research better, more efficiently, faster, and with a better result. So please ask us questions, contact us through our chat, take a look around our website and look at the great things we have to offer. Thank you.